All righty, yeah, let's see, I guess Roger's on the road, Chris is somewhere, Louise is somewhere. Let's do a pledge of allegiance. Tyler, if you can give us a flag somewhere, here it comes. Ryan, you wanna start it?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's introduce John first, and then we'll have a roll call. We got a new member, John from Tollgate, John Adams. Or evidently Ari's cheerleading for you, I guess, right off the bat.
Well, it's Tollgate, now we're properly represented.
Well, you got more than anybody else. How are you properly represented?
Well, I hope to represent the whole community.
That's kind of what a good thing.
Yes, it's not a one community representative.
Okay, John, we've already, Ryan's our brain, he's the legal guy that keeps us out of trouble. Tyler,
I know you do.
Chief, Don Donaldson, Ari, Louise ain't here, Chris ain't here, Roger ain't here. So, you got a pretty small group tonight to get introduced by.
Thank you.
You wanna take a minute and tell us about it, and then you wanna do that first, Ryan, or do you want a roll call first? What's best, just kind of.
You're the chair, you've got the discretion.
Well, I wanna make sure we do it right, because we watch the lives of the world. It's gonna tell us about yourself, if you would, for a minute, and then we'll.
So I have been in Utah since summer of 2016. I followed a career all over the U.S. Grew up in Kentucky, lived in a number of states. Have a finance degree, an economics degree and a finance degree. As my career was sort of winding down in my profession, I went through a divorce and ended up moving out here to be close to a grandson. And somehow I ended up in Tollgate in 2017. And I've been the vice president of the HOA there for 2 years now. And one of the things that I have strived to do, and I hope to continue to do that, is simply let people voice their opinions, because everyone has opinions that can really diverge sometimes, and try to find that middle ground. And I know sometimes we all have to make very difficult decisions, but to the degree we can respect each side and somehow get to that middle ground, even if we're not very happy about the decision collectively, I think sometimes we can reach those good decisions that help the community move forward. So that's kind of how I try to operate, and so I hope to be able to do that with all of you. And thank you very much for having me on this committee, on this board.
Well, welcome aboard.
Yeah, thank you.
Hope you still have that smile when about 2 weeks in.
Okay, well, they said that at the board, at County Council, Tollgate as well, so we'll keep there.
All right, so let's have a roll call. Jim here.
Don Donaldson, present.
John Adams,
Okay, and then we got,
remember?
well, that's 4, but we do have a quorum. We got
You have a
7 now.
quorum?
We got 7 now, right? Okay.
Oh, hold on, I'm gonna let Chris in.
Okay.
He just joined.
Perfect. That's being kind.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Good, how you doing?
Good. Sorry,
Not up
I'm
there,
not
we're-
there in person. I'm out in Tuilla County.
We're just waiting for you to get up on the picture so we have something to throw at the screen.
Well, I'm not gonna show a picture. You'll chastise me for improper attire.
Like any other time, I guess, okay.
John is the only one who's dressed up.
Yeah, that'll fizzle.
We're gonna have a lot to learn here.
All right, well, welcome, Chris, from Tuilla. Sorry for
Thank you.
where you are, I guess.
Well, I had hoped to get out of here earlier, but it didn't work out. Been out here
Well, I
for
hear
5
that.
hours.
Well, that's a long time in Tooele, for sure.
Yes.
All righty, well, we're at a roll call, we've had our pledge. We got a closed session. I don't know, does anybody have anything that we need to do for closed session, purchase, exchange, lease, pending, litigation, personal? Okay, well, we don't have to open that meeting in order to reconvene this one, so. Work session, okay. Chief's report.
Tyler,
Oh,
you mind throwing that up on the screen? Just, I'll let you keep that, Jim, and then I can read off the screen.
okay.
So I'll start here while Tyler gets that up and running for our regular KPIs. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention. I know last year there was a huge concern about training levels and firefighters and things like that. And then also just recently this year, we've been talking a lot about apparatus that have been out of service, looking kind of miserable or being almost out of service. So I wanted to give you an update. So we've had a lot of work done. We got that $5,000 grant from the state about the apparatus that we can spend on either equipment or apparatus repairs, which we've spent the majority of that at this point. So water tender 22, which is in Hennifer, has been completely fixed. We're good. Yep. We're good on water tenders. We're roughly about on the water tender and Wanship for the sale, the surplus items that we had this last month. That tender is up to, what was it, just about 9,000?
Yeah.
Currently closes tomorrow. So we're making actually pretty good money on that one. We're excited about that one. Brush 624 has been repaired. I'd love to show you a picture, but I don't have one with me. But there was literally a rat's nest inside the air filter. It was kind of amazing to see. So,
You've all been there.
yeah. Anyways, but it has been repaired. We're just waiting to put brakes on that thing. And actually, I wanted to just kind of give kudos to Captain Lutz, who came from Weber Fire. He has a degree in this kind of stuff, and he's been going ham. And it's been really nice to be able to have somebody inside that knows what they're talking about when it comes to maintenance. And he's been kind of keeping us alive, so it's been really nice. It just took that full-time kind of educated experience. So, we also have 3 firefighters who are in Fire Academy. That includes Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2 are the basic certifications, and then Hazmat Awareness and Hazmat Operations. They're doing that with Morgan Fire at their academy, and we'll have more going through in the next few months. We have a couple that are starting EMT Basic, and then we'll have them go through EMT Advanced in January because there's a little bit of a process there. And then we will be all up to date, and nobody will either not be fire certified or to some level of EMS. We only have two people left, and they will be done here in a month or two. When it comes to EMS training, we've been doing a lot of stuff. So I don't know if you've been seeing the helicopter flying in Colville quite a bit. We've been having that training going on. They're going to be out here tomorrow also, so don't let that startle you. They've been really great to work with. That's AirMed. And then we've had a program called Target Solutions that we had promised you guys, and we were able to purchase. It's finally up and running, and they're doing their monthly trainings online. Then they're getting out and getting hands-on, which leads us to our first annual medical hands-on training that we're holding in North Summit. I don't think it's ever been done before, but they should have annual hands-on manipulation training. So how to intubate somebody, how to do what's called a laryngeal mask airway, just all kinds of different things, IVs, etc. So that's going to be on the 26th of this month, and we've invited Wasatch Fire, who's going to participate, and then also Park City Fire Department, who's going to participate. We've reached out to South Summit also. I just haven't heard anything from them. So we just also finished, there's been a lot, sorry. As the weather has gotten better, we've just been very concerned about flooding. So we had a lot of flooding calls up in Tollgate. John actually was in touch with me quite a bit, showing the roads, because he's part of that board also. And keeping the sandbags filled up there and keeping them moving. And then our pump truck is still in effect, but it seems like we haven't had many call-outs, at least recently, for that. So the higher elevations are kind of getting hit hard right now, more towards the Weaver Canyon side of things. But we just finished a swift water training, which was kind of a lot of fun for all of us who are into that kind of stuff, which was necessary. So we just finished that. We have 4 firefighters who are taking high angle and low angle ropes. Those are actually courses that we have to take to be able to be certified for canyon rescues like we have in Echo or over here in the dam. We have that kind of all over the district for rock climbers, et cetera. And then also we have 4 more personnel who just finished a heavy extrication class. So that's 2 more certifications to get a special discipline, basically. So they can now cut apart and learn or know how to deal with, for example, that diesel that got hit by the trains this last year. And so when those get really balled up, we have to call out special people and special equipment for those. Hennifer, we had a Hennifer fire. We called it the Jonestown fire. I think I mentioned that to Jim. Maybe I talked to Kay, I can't remember, Mayor Richens, or yeah. But we had 5 acres burn in Hennifer, just right there in the old Jonesville section. It threatened maybe 1 home, didn't really get too close, but we were able to put that out with our new response from our MOU that you guys passed a few months ago with Morgan Fire Department. Park City responded, and then actually we had 3 or 4 or 5 units on scene. It was just our staffing, so it was really awesome. And it actually I think we took care of that fire in 4 or 5 hours, so it went really, really well. Pass that on to your committee if you don't mind for Hennifer, or your council rather. Yeah. Image trend, I know it's been a huge concern this last year. If you guys remember the data, collecting data, reporting, things like that, we finally have image trend up and running. We have gone 1 week today with a program called that image trend that you guys approved a few months ago. The implementation phase is over, and now we are actually collecting good data for the first time in, who knows, a long time. And we'll just kind of keep that going as we should. And then that's all updates I had there. If we go over call volume really quick, Ty?
I put that in there, but I don't see it.
Oh.
See it in there.
Oh.
I can email it out to you, but.
We'll email it out, but what we're seeing trending wise, just to kind of touch on it, call volume has been kind of stagnant for 1 month, the same level. Usually we see an increase about a month ago for our peak season, peak in July, and then we kind of come down again, a big hump in the middle. Because of this crazy weather, it feels like Oregon. We live in Oregon because we're getting afternoon showers every day. But I don't think we're seeing the same peaks we did last year because of the weather is kind of our assumption. Other than that, though, everything's going really well. I wanted to point out, we talked to Louise earlier today, and she wanted us to point out that the top 4 locations that we get the most call volume in is Colville, and then second is the Wanship area, and then it goes Tollgate, I think third, and then fourth would be.
Tollgate's up there. I think it's Echo Canyon.
Yeah, I think it's Echo Canyon third, and then Tollgate fourth. That's correct. So again, that stays pretty steady. We have seen some changes. Tollgate's numbers have gone up slightly from maybe 10 calls to 15, but you're seeing some increases up there going on with all the construction, everything, it matches. And so that's all I had for you today. Do you guys have any questions for me? There's still the EMS study going on, or the EMS study is over. I have the results here if you guys want to take a peek at it. And any results you guys want to discuss, we can do that offline, probably individually. But we had meetings coming up to kind of figure where that's at. The next one is on the 27th of this month, I believe it was, wasn't it? 26th, one of those dates.
Which meeting is that? But that's not an open invitation meeting.
Correct.
Not a public meeting.
Nope, it's just the next meeting to determine the direction that we kind of decide to go. So that's an invitation only with usually north, south, and Park City fire departments. And then you have the county council, some of them who are on the EMS committee, and then you also have one mayor representing all the mayors. So those are the individuals, and then the fire chiefs, of course. So.
And only 2 council members.
Yeah,
right.
Not to make a quorum.
Yeah.
Brian, if we wanted individually to provide feedback to the council on this, when do those opportunities rise, and are we doing that as members of the public, or do we do that as some of the fire district people? I mean, kind of
So
help me not do the wrong thing.
you are going to have a point at which, right, there's going to be a decision point before the council.
Right.
In some form. It's way too early to know what that looks like, but when that shows up on a council agenda, that will be the time for public comment and input.
And that would be the correct form for, like, a person like me to try that, right?
I mean, any individual citizen is always welcome to contact our elected representatives with concerns and thoughts. There's no restrictions on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
That's what I would highly recommend.
Well, I got a lot to say.
I'm sure you do. And I think everybody should have an opinion, at least on this board, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's okay, but I'd like you guys to be educated, so if you guys want to go over this individually, not making a quorum, maybe on time off, we can do that, 1 or 2 at a time. I've been thoroughly over it. We have a couple of other proposals in front of us today that are, some are good, and some are bad, and some are indifferent. So we can kind of go over those also.
And I would encourage each one of you members to sit down with the chief, because I've done this.
Mm-hmm.
Go through the numbers in detail, our numbers,
Yep.
and then what this consultant has
Safe
come up
Tech.
with.
Mm-hmm.
Right, what Safe Tech has come up with, all 3 of the things that they looked at and the one recommendation they have, and I would strongly encourage you to sit down with the chief and go over this.
Absolutely.
So what is different about our dynamic deployment versus what they talked about? If everything's consolidated under that Model 1, it wasn't clear if there's.
Dynamic deployment is a fancy way that they termed that, and it's basically what they consider here. So how we operate between at least North Summit and South Summit, or I'm sorry, North Summit and South
Chief,
Summit.
I'm gonna interrupt only
Yeah.
because the
Oh,
Safe
it's
Tech
not on
study
the
is not
agenda.
on the agenda.
Correct.
Right.
So maybe you guys are welcome to,
I would encourage you to.
Let's get offline.
Yeah,
and do
We'll
that.
take that offline.
I would encourage members to do that one-on-one with the chief, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
You always gotta keep me in check. But anyway, besides that though, that's all I have for you. Oh,
No, the furnace,
That's-
we did do.
That's down there.
that's down a little ways, so I
We got
think.
our public input. You got any public?
Yeah, public, does anybody?
Nobody's raising their hand, they have public input.
Yeah, we'll give them a few minutes or 30 seconds.
How many do we have online? Two.
Public input on, what's not on the agenda, going once, going twice. No hands? Nope. Okay, moving on. Number 8.
And Louise is joined by now too as well.
Okay, number 8, consent agenda. Accounts payable, revised April 23rd and May 23rd. Item A. Okay, who's got
And
the,
well, because you'll make one motion for everything else, so.
That's
The
nice.
minutes, do we have the right people here for those?
we have to have a motion separately on the minutes, each one? I thought we had to do a minute on every one item.
So you can include the minutes as part of a consent agenda. The question has come up about whether you can include these minutes on this consent agenda and whether you have enough votes present to pass them. I think, right, we know Chris is with us online. I think I heard Louise just joined. So what it means, John, is this: if they call for a vote on the consent agenda, if you choose not to vote on the minutes because you weren't here for those meetings and you're not otherwise familiar with the contents of the minutes, then you would not be able to vote on that consent agenda item as a whole. You would likely abstain. So if we have the votes to pass it, you're welcome to proceed that way. Otherwise, any board member can ask to pull the minutes off of the consent agenda, and then you would hold separate votes. One vote for the accounts payable, and then one vote for the minutes, and then of the April 13th, and another for the minutes of May 11th. The rationale being if you want John to be able to vote on the accounts payable item, that would, for that approval.
We don't necessarily need it, we got the votes, so just without him, so we could go with a consent
So
agenda.
I can't, I need to abstain from the April 13th on the minutes because I wasn't here on those either.
We need to,
Who's the
well, you can say, you should still be okay, though, we still should have, who else is here, Tyler, on April?
Everybody, Don was the only one for April 13th.
April 13th, the only ones that
So
question.
you still have Chris and
Louise.
Yeah, Chris
Louise,
and
so
Louise.
you have
Were
an
they
hour.
here for both the April 13th and May 11th?
Yeah.
Chris was gone for May 11th, and so was Louise.
You don't have enough, it's
So we
like
got
three.
split up.
Okay.
Close. We're never gonna be able to get through a
You're
meeting.
gonna wanna just
Pull
you know,
the
and
minutes.
handle each thing,
Yeah, I think-
line them up and then handle it
Yeah.
one at a time.
Yeah, I think so. So if we do our accounts payable, let's do our accounts payable April 2023. Do I have a motion? For that,
You can keep both months together for approval, you don't have to separate those
Okay.
out.
okay, so we'll keep both accounts payable, April 2023 and May 2023. Have a motion, second. Okay.
I'll motion that we accept the accounts payable or as presented for April and May.
Okay, Don made the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Ari seconded. Do we want a roll call vote, or just a,
You don't need a roll call.
okay, so we have a vote, Ari?
Are you gonna do a roll call?
You can just do all in favor. and you
Yeah,
can-
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Louise up there?
I know she'll be in her car, she may not be able to respond.
She. Yeah. All in favor, like, free promoter.
Okay,
So she gone?
she's gone.
Okay,
There
that's
she is again.
unanimous. Next item.
Aye
Minutes of
for me.
April 13th.
Thanks, Louise.
Okay, now we got it.
Okay, sorry, I just could get it working.
No problem.
Okay, then the minutes of April 13th, 2023.
Move to accept or adopt the minutes of April 13th, 2023 as presented.
We got a motion from Ari. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Louise seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you're going to abstain.
Chris was saying.
And,
So Chris was an aye on there.
okay.
We got it.
Okay, that's a pass with Dawn abstaining. And I'll get it, it's gonna take minutes. John Adams abstaining. Okay, next item, minutes, May 11th, 2023.
I'll move to adopt the minutes of the meeting from May 11th, 2023 as presented.
Got a motion from Ari. Do we have a
I'll second it.
second? Don seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
He abstained, John abstained.
Do I have
Say
to
aye
abstain,
when
I
you
think,
hear.
right?
Yes, you do, Louise.
Yeah, if you wasn't here, yep. And then
Yep.
Chris wasn't here either, so.
Okay.
Yeah, we should,
Then you're gonna wanna pull, if you only have three, you're gonna wanna pull it.
Yeah, we only
Yeah,
have three.
for the next time.
okay, we'll have to pull that one for lack of quorum.
And bring it back at a future meeting.
We'll bring it back at a future meeting. Okay, now, number 9. Consideration of approval, review, discuss, possible recommendation of the Summit County Council of change of section 9 and 12 of the personnel policy.
You have the wrong agenda, it's just, section 9 now.
Let me pull up a different one, sorry. You must have had it drafted in, I pulled up.
Oh,
Sorry.
It's just section 9, no 12. I'll pull that up.
okay. Okay, so sorry about that. Review and discussion of possible recommendation of the Summit County Council of changes of section 9 of the personnel policies.
So I can take that one. This is the section 9 is our fringe benefits section. Is this one we're going over PTO, because I don't have my computer in front of me?
Yeah.
Perfect. So you all had the executive summary in front of you, and the reason for this is kind of started from, let me give you kind of a scenario. We had a firefighter who had a tragic call back in, I think it was January, where a 12 or 14-year-old young man, he passed away. And he had a hard time dealing with some of this mentally, so he had some time off. And then also, again, just recently, we had a 6-year-old who was unfortunately hurt by a diesel in the middle of a road. And he, again, had to respond on that call, and there was some mental health issues there that he was dealing with. We recommended using our EAP, which we have in place. He used it, and both the doc or the therapist and him recommended time off. Because he wasn't physically sick or anything, but he had some mental anguish and things he was dealing with going on, kind of a gray area. And we would like to combine, the purpose of this is to combine basically our vacation, our holiday, and those into a single pot where they can use that for also mental health issues and other types, so being sick. Now, there is some teeth to this policy I want to make sure you guys understand too. If they go beyond a certain amount of time, which is about 48 hours because they work 2 days at a time, so 48 hours, they have to come in with a doctor's note, for example. So there is some... Oh. And then there was, there's also an option to buy out. So we want to encourage people to be able to take this time off. Can you mute her? Okay. To take this time off. So what we've done is on that buyout option, it's up to 252 hours per year that you could take above a minimum of 245. Is that in front of me? Is that right? 40?
200 and...
Sorry, Ty. Yeah, 240 hours. And like I had a good conversation with Don, there's a lot of places that don't give them 100% payout if they're not going to use it for vacation. So we're going to pay out about 50% of that 252 hours up to possibly twice per year. And so, or I'm sorry, once per year. I apologize. And anyway, so it's kind of a good option. It gives us a little bit of more leeway to be able to handle some mental health stuff because as you remember about a couple months ago, we also got a grant for $5,000 to help with mental health for firefighters. I know personally I've sent more people, firefighters ironically enough, in the last 4 years to EAPs than I ever have in my 20 years. And so for whatever reason, it's becoming an issue. Mental health is a major issue, and not sure if that's how they were raised, if they weren't raised resilient or whatever, but it's becoming more of an issue, and firefighter or first responders in general are committing higher rates of suicide. And so we would like to encourage this. So we're looking for a recommendation from the board to be able to approve this as a PTO paid time off.
I have kind of just a curiosity question.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at this,
Can I peek on your screen? Is that okay?
Yeah. So my curiosity is I understand the 50%, but what institutes or what triggers them going into long-term disability? What is the trigger if they have issues that they can't overcome? They picked up those issues on the job, right? So they basically, it's kind of a job-related incident that happened. It's easy to figure out a physical element or injury, but these are mental. So what triggers long-term disability where they would basically get off of this and then go into some sort of insurance that would pick it up? Have we considered that at all in this?
In this, not necessarily. Long-term disability, and Tyler being our HR person, he can kind of chime in as he needs to, but I don't know where mental health sits with long-term disability or our, our insurance with them, our, what you call it? Help me out, Tyler.
What's that, sorry?
You're okay. What am I thinking here? What's the word? Workman's comp, thank you.
Workers'
Yeah, I'm not sure if they'll cover mental health issues, if it's just physical or not. And so from what I've been taught from some therapists as we've been trying to build this program is that it's kind of their recommendation. So they're a short-term solution. Once that EAP and that firefighter has seen the short-term solution, depending on the results of the interviews that this therapist has with the firefighter, they either recommend longer-term therapy sessions or just say, hey, we're done. We think you're okay now. This is how you're going to move forward. And then they just kind of come back to work. We actually had just recently a situation, I won't give all the details about the firefighter, but he was entrapped on a second story of a fire, and he was having some major issues because it was his first fire ever, younger firefighter, never experienced anything like that. He went through a traumatic event. I think he probably saw 3 or 4 of the therapy sessions from our EAP, and then at the end, the therapist said, you know what, you're doing really well, let's get you back to work, and he returned to work. He missed, I can't remember how many shifts exactly, but about 3 or 4 shifts total because of it.
Okay, so
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no. So right now, we do not have a trigger on when they go into long-term.
No, just the therapy
Other
discretion
than
for mental health.
From the recommendation from a
therapist.
professional.
Yeah, that's really the only solution I have currently.
And are we mixed with the county's benefits? And do we know what those, do they mirror that?
Yeah, so we use all the same exact benefits, we use it all through the county, all of our benefits.
So does the county have a long-term disability program that can cover something like this?
Our long-term disability is actually through URS, but I don't know. I guess there's never been a question for mental
I wonder if we can
health
find an
stuff,
answer for you by next meeting.
Is that individual insurance for each person is where the long-term disability comes? Is it part of the package through URF?
so. Mhm.
So we don't administer that, we don't trigger that,
Uh-uh.
that all comes through that insurance?
Yeah.
Okay.
But in our benefits package, we do pay for it, each
Right,
individual.
no, I
Yeah.
got that.
So we can reach out to them.
So, yeah, maybe we could see a copy of the policy for that part, that would be awesome.
You wanna draw it in?
I can pull up the county's policy.
Oh, please
but,
do. It should be mirrored as far as we know, because you helped write it, so.
Well, it sounds like, well, your policy doesn't, your HR policy doesn't address it,
Right.
but the, county's personnel policy does, but it sounds like you are not in line there because you don't opt into the county side of benefits there. You're saying you opt into URS for long-term issues?
That's how I understand it. Tyler, is that how you understand it?
Yeah, we use the short-term disability with the county, the provider is through the county, but.
Right.
The long-term we pay for through URS, and they provide it.
And Tyler, just shoot that around.
And I'll write a note to ask maybe that question to the long-term, whoever provides that, so that'd be URS, and we could say, hey, what triggers an event that would make this a long-term solution? But at least we know they'll be covered because we do pay for that for everybody. It's a good question, though.
So, I love the idea of moving to PTO rather than having individual buckets for everything. Speak to just a moment of how this will help in recruiting.
Yeah, so actually recruitment and retention is really big right now, and this is one of the ways firefighters don't make a ton of money. Oh, sorry. So one of the ways that is offset, it's like a chain or a trade-off, right? We may not have a high wage as firefighters, but sometimes we have better benefits. Most of the time we have better benefits. So when the economy's down, it's a more secure job and the benefits are better, right? Versus maybe somebody potentially in construction or whatever that industry might be. We have a really good benefits package with Summit County in general that we've copied from them. We have 100% free benefits that, the district pays for and subsidizes for that. And this will make it just that much better. So if people are looking for time off, especially in this environment of mental health and that kind of trigger word, it looks good. And actually, I've had quite a few firemen I've been interviewing, and they like it. So that way they can have a little bit more freedom of saying, hey, I need a mental health day. I'm not necessarily sick, or maybe my kid's sick and I just need to stay home for the day because my wife's working or whatever. This gives us a little bit more wiggle room, and firefighters seem to like that. So.
And this is going to affect your staffing ability much.
Any call-offs affect our staffing, but we already project for that. There was a question brought up about, well, how are you going to account for this budget-wise? Well, we know that they have to go over that 240 minimum, so we won't have to deal with this because at their accrual rates currently, beyond, it's going to start right about 1.5 to 2 years that we'll have to start dealing with this. But we have to budget for 100% anyways on an estimate. We roughly do about 288 hours is what we've kind of taken from Park City as their guesstimate of how much people expend per year. This will actually be a savings in some ways because if they do take the buyout, for example, it'll be at 50% of 100. So
What's our safety if we have what would be the word for it, an abuser of this particular thing?
Like time off abuser?
Yeah, time off abuser. Somebody gets, every couple of months, he's got something else that's traumatic, has affected him, and we can't, once the professionals say, you're cleared, or we don't really see a big issue here, it's hard to prove what their mind is in play, what versus a certain observant sees of it.
Yeah.
What kind of teeth we have that an abuser of this policy how long do we have to?
Well, I think you're referring, if I were summarizing your question, is more along the lines of mental health question. But the policy itself covers everything because it's a lump sum now. So it could be like physical ailment, a sickness, whatever, injury, but it also would cover mental health. It gives us that latitude. According to the mental health side that you're asking about, that latitude, they have to go see a therapist. If they're claiming that they have a mental health issue,
Yeah,
then they need to go to the EAP.
Yeah, that's what I wanna know, is make sure.
Or if it's a physical one, they have to bring in a doctor's note. So we do cover ourselves, and there's a little bit of teeth there. So that's good.
So I just was reading through this policy, so section D, says disability coverage begins on the 31st day, from the accident or illness.
I think that's short term.
Yeah. So, but it goes into long term here as well, up to 6 months. So.
What page is that?
It pays up to 6 months.
Page 9-2,
Long term or start?
section D.
Long term usually starts after 90 days.
Yeah.
I've never been in business to tell with that, so I've never seen.
Which will be the,
Which in your case is URS.
Right.
yeah. Correct. I know there's also, the state fire marshal level, there's a LTD that they can have, like a long-term disability, they can be eligible also for.
That's through the URS.
Is that also through the URS?
That's the URS program is.
Oh, is it the same, one and the same?
You wanna unmute Louise, see if she has a comment, or Chris, something?
Did that help a little bit, finding that?
I don't have any comment. I'm in favor of combining them. I think we can then combine them if there were abuse. It seems to make sense to me.
Louise, thanks, Chris. Louise, do you have anything you wanna touch on, if you can hear us?
I like this, a lot. I see the benefits of it. I've seen the benefits of it, so.
Okay, thank you.
If I may.
Ryan?
I know the chief's gonna wanna slap me for this, but I have to put it out there.
Every day.
I guess this isn't new.
Yeah.
But just so the board is aware, and this is not to try and steer or direct any votes, this is simply an FYI. The changes proposed here to move everything into one bucket, as well as to allow for a cash conversion privilege, are not otherwise acknowledged or implemented in the county's personnel policies for its employees. And generally speaking, the council's preference has been for its district's personnel policies to mirror and align with its countywide personnel policies for its employees. So what you're being asked to recommend, I'm gonna put a footnote there and come back to that for your benefit, John. What you're being asked to recommend is some changes to the district's personnel policies that would be novel or unique and not otherwise utilized within the county's personnel policies. So you're welcome to make that recommendation to the council, that remains your prerogative, but just as a general awareness, the prevailing preference has long been that district personnel policies map and align with the county's personnel policies. So I don't know what would happen, with the discussion at the council, but I'm just putting that out there for everybody's awareness.
Do I get my chance to rebuttal?
In a minute, there's nothing to rebut. This is just cold facts. I mentioned recommendation. So the fire district is a special service district, which is technically a dependent district as it's created under state law. That means that this district is not a totally independent legal entity, right? Mm-hmm. The relationship between the special service districts and the county is not one at arm's length, it's rather of an entity under an umbrella. So the county, and this is laid out, this is provided for and authorized by state statute and explained in county code. There's a chapter of county code for each one of these special service districts. and other districts and boards as well. But in that code, it explicitly references and points to state code and says that the county council is the governing body for the special service district. And there are certain things over which this group gets to exercise a general degree of autonomy and make decisions, and there are other things for which you sit in a recommending capacity as the administrative control board, and you then make when you vote, you're not voting to approve, you're voting to recommend, and that goes up to the county council, who has the ultimate and final say. And anything relating to personnel is one of those items that must go up to the county council as your governing body. Similarly, last year, with truth and taxation, that was a recommendation vote from this body that went up to the council for final approval. Annually, when the district goes through the budget process, that budget has to be approved by the county council. But when it comes to, expenditures, authorizing large expenditures, within the confines of your budget, you as the board get to do that. When it comes to updating and revising your fee schedule, you as the board get to do that. When it comes to the operational approach of the district, you as a board get to do that.
So for something like this, do changes within the structure of, pay compensation, does it typically originate at the county council level, or does it typically originate within a district like this? Is there a history of where that origination begins?
It usually recommends from the bottom up.
Okay, so this is not unusual.
Not unusual. It's unusual for the county to approve something like this, and Chris can probably kind of speak to that a little bit, having some experience there. The uniqueness of this one, and I want you guys to keep in mind, it's kind of a different recommendation that you would give compared to what they've traditionally done, for sure. And Ryan recognized that, and I'm glad you pointed it out. I don't have a rebuttal, but I want you to consider something. The county's not a fire district. They don't deal with the same types of events that we deal with. Their employees are different. So I'm making something a little bit out of the box thinking to be able to help fix some of these issues that as a fire district we deal with that maybe the county doesn't.
The sheriff's office might.
The sheriff's office might, because they would have PTSD issues also.
Definitely.
Correct.
So if you look at this
So,
in terms
Chief?
of, and
Yes, sir.
Oh, when you're through, I would answer the allusion you made, but if you'd like, I'll be brief. I don't fault any ideas
ahead.
being floated up the council. I say I don't fault any ideas being floated up the council. They may be dead on arrival, or they may be a catalyst for changing. And instead of having the district conform to the county may conform to the district if it's a good idea. So I think that, we'll hear the same counsel or reminder given at the county level, maybe not by Ryan, but by someone saying, this is a deviation from the county standard.
I think your string broke between the cans, Chris, you're gone. You back? Chris, you went out funny noises and then you're quiet and then you're silent. Oh.
Okay, well, what I was just saying is that this district recommending to the council new ideas or ideas different from what our SOP has been. And who knows, but whether it might be a catalyst for changing the county policy, regarding to this paid time off or combining these categories, or maybe it'll be dead on arrival. But I think that rather than guess what the council might do, I think we ought to serve it up.
I concur.
I was going to ask, just basically, if you look at total compensation of the employees in North Summit versus the total compensation of South Summit or Park City, do we compare
We're lower.
competitive, so we are lower.
We're lower.
So you need something like this.
It's nice because it does help retention, yes.
And South Summit's a whole nother bag of worms because they're not ran through the county council. They're their own, they're their own world up there, and so there's, everything they do is nothing in line with what we do.
Well, then, if from a fiduciary standpoint it makes sense, I don't see why we wouldn't support it.
So I have a question on it. So the way I understood what you just said, Ryan, the conversion of cash is not a county, the conversion to cash for PTO, is that, county is doing that now, or they are not doing that?
They're not.
Is not. So
The county's not doing that or the one bucket. And right, I agree with Chris. I'm not weighing in to say you should or shouldn't take any action with this. I'm just kind of broadcasting what the landscape has traditionally looked like.
So can you explain to me how we picked the hours? What determined how you guys came up with this 120 hours to 152 hours? How did we determine what those were, and what gave you the basis that this is common in the industry?
Well, yeah, no problem. So currently, our policies, to kind of give you an idea, stem from the county is where they originally came from. And then Park City got a hold of them and they tweaked them. And then North Summit got a hold of Park Cities and other districts, and then we tweaked them even more. All of them are very similar to either the county or Park Cities. We're not that far off. This is unique, though, as to Ryan's point. How we came up with the numbers is trying to call all the different districts, so Weaver County Fire District, that are comparative in size, South Davis Fire District, Morgan Fire District, and then trying to compare and contrast how many hours they're giving their employees per bucket. And so it's all in alignment with those. It's the same way that we would do a wage study, for example.
And did we do any kind of analysis as to what effect this would have on our budget going forward?
We did. We've been looking into that, and it will raise it slightly, but not by much, because you're paying, because we already have to account for 100% of that time anyways, which we are. And then if they did the buyout, for example, it would be 50% of their wage, which helps encourage them to actually take their time off, because if they take their time off, they get 100% of their wage.
So I noticed the carry forward here, where they weren't really before.
Wasn't high.
Right, so
Yeah.
if they carry this forward to future years, I mean, what's the maximum amount they can accrue?
960.
960.
Correct.
And then you
120
buy that back
days.
at half the amount.
Right, if they so chose.
If they so chose, or they could use it.
Or they could use it, and we would encourage using it. And we would hope that discouragement of the 50% would help them too. And it's kind of a beautiful way that, you know, even if they did buy out that time, they still stay within that range of where we want them to be anyways, whether they buy it out or they use it.
Ryan, is the county, how do they carry their stuff over like we're talking?
So,
The time, not the time.
yeah, you are limited in what you can carry over.
A lot of time.
And let me pull it up. I've got the counties up. Let me just-
Well, can I speak to that really quick while he's looking that up, Ari? You got to keep in mind, an average 40-hour employee, if they were to take a day off work, they have to take off 8 hours.
Right.
A firefighter has to take off 48. And that's why that time from a 40-hour employee perspective looks huge. But truly, if you're burning through those in 48-hour increments, it's a lot less.
Just 20 of those, though,
Correct.
in 1 year.
Mm-hmm. But we're already giving out the vacation and the sick anyways, and the holiday. So,
Okay, let's see.
but good question. I just want to point that out.
You can carry an unused vacation leave balance of up to a maximum of 200 hours.
Right.
So, once you get over 200 hours, and that's,
Does the new one say 240? Oh,
that's
240.
to carry over annually, right?
Oh.
So, I can accrue more than 200,
Mm-hmm.
but anything I still have in the bank over 200, as of midnight on January 1st, it's gone.
You lose it.
In fact, I drop it down to 200. And the policy behind that, in part, is to encourage employees to use their time. Right. You work hard, take the time, go on vacation. It's good for your, speaking of mental health, it's good for your mental health.
Sick leave
Yeah.
doesn't carry forward. So.
Sick leave is different. Sick leave, you can accrue up to 400 hours.
Can you carry that, and that carries forward?
Up to 400 hours. But once you have 400 hours, assuming you don't take any more sick time, you cannot accrue any more than 400 hours.
So the 4 plus the 200, and the PTO 200 would be roughly 600.
600.
And we're up at 9 here.
960.
960.
And, if you, right, because you accrue that time, if you leave employment,
Right.
you are paid out your vacation time at 100%, but you're paid out your sick time at 50%.
Right. So, as Chief, what I'm not concerned about the payout is, because you've done the math properly on that, I'm concerned about people collecting large amounts of PTO, carrying it forward, and using the heck out of it, you know?
Mhm.
And we want them to, like Ryan said, but I think 960 to me sounds, and I've done this before,
Mhm.
previous company
Yeah.
I ran, I've always done PTO, I love it. It's like the best thing ever.
Do you have a
You know,
recommendation?
micromanaging stuff. Yeah, I like it, I love PTO, and employees will love PTO, but I think the amount of PTO we're carrying, it feels a little high to me. And once again, with the payout being half, that's not what scares me. What scares me is you've got a lot of firefighters with a lot of seniority taking a lot of time off. And
One thing I flagged for the chief to consider, just a concern to be ready to address when this, if the board sends this up to the council, is at some point in time, those conversions will have a budgetary impact that you'll have to anticipate.
it'll be large, yeah,
Any recommendation?
like you said.
Because maybe we can still pass something like this, because everybody likes the concept, but with a tweak.
Yeah.
Could we pull that section out? And I would be interested, sorry to interrupt you there.
We do that all the time to each other. And we file that every time.
I would like to do analysis how, what years these start kicking in. So you've got, you have to have 120, 252 hours. What, is that year 3, 4 that this starts kicking in? Year 2.
Mhm. So 2025.
So then what you anticipate in year 2, 3, 4, 5, what you anticipate how that'll affect your budget, just to see what it's gonna do to us.
Mhm.
And, additional staffing, if people take part of this,
Yeah, and currently on our budget, to give you an example, without getting too deep into the woods, we budget about 288 hours on an average year that employees take. That came from Park City, kind of as an average, so high and low, obviously. And then it's worked for us up to this point at least. And we don't have a trend necessarily to work off of, so we're trying to kind of use other agencies' help with this. But that's what they recommended, was that 288. So that's what we've done all of our budgeting on. So I don't think they're gonna really go over the limit too much. They're gonna still take the time, because they're not gonna go 2 or 3 years before they hit that 240 or more. And you have to be above that to even be able to do the buyout anyways. Plus, we're already averaging that 288 at 100% versus what we pay out at 50.
My experience is that people don't use it all. I mean, it rarely gets used.
All the PTO, you mean?
Yeah, it rarely does.
Well, and with the buyout, it'll keep them in
But
that range
But
too.
the 960 scares back out of me.
So can I butt in here really fast?
Yeah.
In the red line
This
down
rate's
below
are
for
fine. Yeah.
sick leave, currently our sick leave allows 960 hours accrued
Wow.
for suppression employees.
And to be moved up forward to the next year.
That's the maximum accrual.
Yeah, that's what Park Cities is now, so you would actually be lowering the standard of what's already there, according to Ryan.
So that's, so 608, so what happens is, in this policy right now, vacation leave, once you hit your max, at the end of the year, at 100%, rolls to your sick leave,
Right.
up to that 960 hours. So currently on the books, somebody could, in theory,
Get the 960.
get a lot more than 960, because you get 960 of sick leave and, what was it for vacation? On the current policy on the books today.
Right here. It depends on the years of service for vacation.
But you can roll those over? You can roll vacation over, up to 200 or what?
So you could, right now, you can roll vacation. Sorry, back up there.
I'm sorry, I'm being.
Fresh employees, 456. So employees may carry unused vacation leave over to the next year to a maximum of 456 hours for suppression employees.
So you can get the 1,400? Holy cow.
2,000 hour year of work.
Yeah, you basically take almost a year off.
Yeah,
It sounds like the post office.
Yeah, as a business owner, I don't, that seems a little, that's a lot of paid time off.
But if we were to move to approve, to send this up to council, it's a cut. And if we're paying for it at the end, we're paying half instead of full, so.
And if there is employment separation, there is a chart in here that they don't get pulled,
I saw
paid
that.
100% of their hours, depending on their years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. We have a recommendation to lower that then. So do you need suggestions on numbers?
I'd love to see the budget thing before we, there's no rush to do this, right?
No, just a
Is that
good
okay?
time to start, 100%, yeah, it's totally okay.
Is that a lot of work for you? I know you're super busy.
Well, I mean, it's work, but it'll be fine. That's what we're here for. So,
Yeah, budget's, what, 3-year, what did you say? I forgot, 3-year budget?
5 years.
5-year budget impact, that'd be awesome.
yeah, we can
It
get that.
sounds like it's almost a wash based on what people would use and cash out on. As a matter of fact, they may save us money, but the thing I'm concerned about is if people actually
The
use
perception,
it
I
and,
think.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody likes the idea that I'm gathering, the numbers they'd like to see, and then we can adjust that number accordingly.
Because I think as far as.
We have time on to work on it, so.
The PTS thing, I think the cops probably have actually a higher chance of that because it's every day they're getting some.
I would like to see what Summit County, sheriff's policy is on that too. So if we can get.
That's what maybe Ryan can stop that in there, but they don't.
I can, yeah, I'll reach out to, I can't remember, I think, the sheriff just got appointed, so I don't know how long. Did he? Well, he was on,
Did he?
social
They
media.
voted last night.
Voted last night?
Yep.
Yeah, he's
Very taken
been
minute.
appointed marshal.
Yeah.
Yeah, US Marshal.
So I don't know,
Really?
is he done?
He got through
You got
the
it.
Senate?
Oh, yeah.
I forget, he's told us it's not long, his last day is coming up. I forget what his email said, he sent it last night, I forget what it is, but it's not many days.
Yeah, me too.
Love that
Well,
guy.
the council have to take action, but interim.
All right. Yeah, if we can see those two, I think those two things would make us all feel better about it and, you know, to John's point, have more fiduciary control over.
I concur. So we'll reach out to the PTO, get the budget impact for the next 5 years, and then we'll try and get with Frank to see if we can't get what the sheriff's office is doing, if anything, which I don't think they are, according to Brian's
If we
comment.
can see this part of the policy.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and table that one, bring it up for future.
Why don't you get a
Good work on this.
motion?
Yeah, thank you.
That one to a future meeting and.
Okay, can we get a motion to number 9 to bring that back to another meeting, continue this to another meeting when the chief's gonna have us some more documentation and some budget numbers, long-term, 5 years.
I don't know that we need a motion, do we, Ryan? Or do we just, do we need to officially table it, or we just do so by, by omission?
By non-act? Yeah, because you can just bring it up again later.
And that's fine too, where it was noticed for possible action, I just thought maybe you would have a
No
motion to
motion,
continue it.
It's easier to have a motion than
Oh,
not
that-
needed than.
I'll second the motion that it be tabled.
Okay, motion by Ari, seconded by Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Okay, next item, financial matters. Discussion and possible approval of amount not to exceed $12,000.
You said it was just gonna be, it was in your procurement, you were just advising them on it.
Oh, yeah,
So
sorry,
that's an
so
action item.
what's the current agenda say? Let's take this one away from Jim.
So that's all the,
That's
That's
it.
everything?
yeah.
So I will give the update then, so.
Part of your report.
Yeah. So, because you guys got the executive summary for the furnace at Wanship and then the new AC, we found in our purchasing policy that, actually, this is just an update for you guys. We're gonna be moving on to new furnace because it's roughly 30 years old out of that one shift station. Needs to be updated. When we got a bid on a new AC unit, because now that firemen are there, we don't want them sweating to death this summer. The current furnace guy that we have the bid on, we're waiting on a second one still. We had that done, we're just waiting for some numbers. He recommended that to not put a brand-new AC unit with a 30-year-old furnace, which is probably a wise decision, to be honest with you. And so, we are gonna be spending the money on a new furnace. Now, Ari and I had a conversation, because he's over finances. I think we decided capital, didn't we?
Definitely capital.
Yeah, we'll be definitely pulling it from capital then. So, any questions on that one, though? I feel like that one's pretty simple.
Get it done.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, you need to have that.
We just need that second.
Is there a standard of operation or procedure on the number of bids that we should have before?
Yeah, so I have a whole document like this, but it says, our purchasing policy that we have to follow. We also have limits for the fire chief or the board, et cetera. It's under like small purchases. Ryan, actually, I reached out to Ryan on this one, and he recommended that it be an intermediate purchase. So the limit for the fire chief is from 5,000 to 25,000, and it fit right in there. So that's why it's just an update, not a recommendation.
And then we approved those policies last year.
Yeah.
And we're on county, an approved county vendor, right?
State.
State approved?
State approved.
State approved.
Then you
Well,
don't have to do.
you can also, but with this limit, we discussed this, that we don't necessarily need to follow that, but we're gonna get one anyway.
Well, two similar but different things, right? So what the chief is referencing are the purchasing thresholds. Depending on the type of purchase and the amount of the purchase, that dictates who has approving or authorizing authority. Either the chief, his procurement agent, depending on how his department grows and if he wants to designate somebody to authorize lower level expenditures, and then for the big stuff, the board. That's different from the actual process as to whether something has to go out for bid or RFP. The reference to state contract is that if an item is available in state contract, that procurement can be obtained directly.
Okay.
You can engage directly without going, notwithstanding the amount. No matter the dollar amount, if that vendor's on state contract, you can make the purchase directly. You don't have to go through, RFQ or RFP or any, yeah. But the dollar amount still falls under your approval thresholds in the procurement policy.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Yep, thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions about the AC or the furnace? Oh, yeah, isn't that amazing? Sorry, I think we're here. I'm just opening this one for you.
I say, we're out of items, because there was only one left, the adjourn button at the bottom.
I moved to adjourn.
Well, there's board comments.
Actually, that's
Oh,
not bad.
yeah, we got
Not
it.
bad either.
Keep
You'll
it
have
short,
to-
John.
Ryan, do you have the agenda on you? Show here.
Sorry.
Okay, that one, board comments. Chris?
I have none. I was seconding the motion to adjourn.
Good for you.
Well, Ari made the motion, Chris seconded the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Awesome. Wow, that was like, I think the fastest, wasn't it?
July's meeting.
Last one was right at that.
Last meeting.
Oh, you're not